Good afternoon. Welcome to the Enhanced B465 Dual Path Communicator webinar. My name is Paul Garms. I'm the Director of Marketing for the Intrusion product line at Bosch in North America. And today I'm excited to talk to you about the 465. As we all know, alarm communication technology is changing. POTS lines are becoming more expensive and less supported by phone companies. And alarm communications are being replaced with IP over cellular and Ethernet. Because of this, the B465 has enjoyed widespread success since its introduction a little over a year ago, and that's the reason we've continued to invest in this technology, and today are going to talk to you about the improvements we've made to it. We'll start with a review of the existing features, because as I mentioned, this has been part of our portfolio for a little over a year now. It was introduced in October 2015, and then we'll move into the new features that we've added, and then dive into some of the peripherals, kits, and finish with technical and sales literature that we've provided you to support it. Joining me today is Chris Ossont, who is our Global Product Manager for our Kinetics communication portfolio. This includes our central station receivers, cellular and phone modules, as well as the B465. And he's going to be covering most of the technical aspects of the 465.
All right, thanks, Paul. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you about the new features of the 465, our universal dual path communicator. But the first thing I'm going to do, as Paul said, is kind of go over the features that it has had since its launch. So this product originally launched in October of 2015, and out of the gate, we coined it as our universal dual path communicator because it supports Ethernet and cellular capability, cellular via the plug-in slot. It's a full data AES 256 encrypted, and it's essentially a dial capture device. So what we're doing here is we're trying to upgrade our customers and provider dealers with a solution to upgrade their end users from the POTS lines that are declining and becoming more and more expensive, and provide them with a future-proof solution from a technology standpoint that has Ethernet and cellular capabilities. So this product was and still is today UL 864 certified, NFPA 72, 2013 edition approved, and approved for Sole Path Fire for FDNY and CSFM. Again, to highlight the capabilities of the 465, it has the ability to take over 2 phone lines, which provides cost savings for the end customer. I think that everybody's full aware that the price, the plans for PSTN lines are continuing to increase the cost per month, and that there's a lot of issues, technically speaking, with VoIP compensation and stuff like that. So for upgrading those older panels that are still installed and not having to completely tear out that panel and do a new installation, the 465 is a great solution. We do have one highlight in here. Basically, there's no host panel programming. That's a question we get from a lot of our customers. It would be a nice feature to have, but it would be incredibly expensive to be able to program all the various different host panels that the 465 could be connected up to. Again, it's got a future-proof design. The main reason we tout the future-proof of the 465 is that it's got the plug-in cellular modules. So some of our competitors have a built-in cellular module into the product, but then say 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, when you want to upgrade the cellular communications path because some network is sunsetting, it makes it difficult to do that. What Bosch has done is we've made that a modular design. So we have our 440 series 44X series of cellular modules that can be plugged directly into the 465, making it future-proof. And as we come out with new cellular communicators, it's a simple firmware upgrade of the 465 and then just plug in the communicator. The 465 also supports IPv6, and it is DNS compatible. All right, so in its initial launch, again, the support for 2 phone line inputs. It also supports dry contacts from dialer-based control panels. And the original formats that the 465 supported when it launched were contact ID, SIA, and Pulse formats, Pulse 3.1 and Pulse 4.2. We'll get into when we get to the new features, some of the new formats that we support. It has 4 programmable inputs, so if you're not using it in a fashion where you're capturing the phone lines, you can use the programmable inputs. Basically, you just wire the outputs from the host panel to the inputs of the 465, and then you can configure the inputs for what type of alarm scenario it's going to be. And the B465 also has 3 programmable relays for outputs. So that's for indication of any kind of trouble conditions or failures. Here we're going to talk about some of the cellular solutions for the 465. The main cellular solutions that we have today, the 440, which is our Verizon 3G, 2G communicator, and the 443, which is a 3G plus, they're your HSPA network, and that's an AT&T, T-Mobile, and also a Rogers solution. We have a note in here, the 444 coming soon. I'm sure some of you have probably seen in the literature that's been sent out that the 465 will support the 444. That's a product that we intend to launch in the near future, and that will be a Verizon 4G LTE communicator. One of the main things that we're very proud of is our end-to-end supervision, which we do this a little bit different from a lot of our competitors. We don't send any of our information to like a network operations center or something like that then gets forwarded on to the central station receiver. The way that Bosch has implemented our solution for the 465 is that we do not acknowledge the host panel until the 465 has sent the message off to the central station receiver. The receiver has acknowledged that and sent it back to the 465. Only at that point does the 465 acknowledge the host panel event. And we have a kind of a diagram to show that. We have redundant technology routes, so that's your Ethernet and your cellular, as well as redundant destinations, so we support 2 receiver IP destinations. And then a note on that so if you have your first destination and your first route set for a higher supervision rate and you have to fall over to your secondary technology, the supervision rate of the original technology will take over. The Bosch Kinetics receiver is required for 465, so the 465 language that it speaks when reporting to the central station is Kinetics, so it does require a Bosch Kinetics receiver, which would be our D6600 or D6100 IPv6 receivers, and those can be configured with our D6200 software. So this is a diagram basically just showing a typical installation of a 465. So you have your intrusion panel or fire panel that is a legacy panel mounted on the wall, and essentially what you do is you mount the 465 right next to it, and you tie the phone lines that used to carry the signal to the central station receiver, and now you just tie them directly into the 465. And then whether you want Ethernet or you want cellular as your communication means, you can do either or both if you want. And then the paths to the single receiver or redundant receivers where the central automation software is running in your CMS. So here's an example of how some of our customers have implemented their dial capture solution or their communicators. So this is going to show a capture device, and the control panel has an alarm that it needs to send. It makes it to the capture device, and then the capture device then forwards it on to the NOC, the Network Operations Center, which will then in turn will forward it on to the receiver at the central monitoring station. There's an issue in this type of use case in that how do you know that the event actually made it from that Network Operations Center to the receiver? So basically the way our customers have implemented it, the control panel sends the alarm, the capture device captures it, sends it onto the NOC. The NOC sends an acknowledgement back to the capture device, and then the capture device acknowledges the control panel. this whole time, if the operations center has an issue, has some kind of connection issue to the central monitoring station, you could have just acknowledged an alarm event that never actually made it to the receiver, kind of giving you a false hope that police or fire department's on the way, but they may not be. So this shows an example of the signal not making it to the receiver, but the control panel kind of just being happy with the situation that it's in, so not good. So this is an overview of how we have implemented it with the 465. The control panel sends the alarm event to the 465. We send it to the receiver. Only after the receiver acknowledges back to the 465 do we acknowledge send an acknowledgement back to the control panel. So here's a scenario where the message doesn't make it to the Kinetics receiver, and then you'll get a local alarm and an issue at the host panel. This is a somewhat complicated diagram here to basically show the redundancy that we have built into this product. So from a cellular and Ethernet perspective, and from a primary and secondary receiver perspective, the redundancy that we've built into this product to ensure that your signals make it to the central station. So this is going to show basically using cellular as your primary means of communication. You make it out from the cellular carrier to the internet to the primary receiver. In this example, it did not work. It was not acknowledged that the signal made it there. So now we try for our secondary receiver, and this is done automatically in our by the configuration of the 465. So in this example, it does not make it to the secondary receiver. The 465 then tries its alternate means of communication, which is, say, Ethernet, sends the alarm event to the primary receiver, doesn't make it, so then it tries the secondary receiver. So you can see four attempts were made, and actually within there's multiple attempts for basically inside each one of those attempts. And then by not getting an acknowledgement, it triggers an alarm at the panel. All right, so that's kind of a quick overview of the 465, all the features it had when it launched in 2015, kind of the way it works. And then now I'm going to get into the new features that we have added to the 465. The best part about this, we added all these new features to the 465, but we're keeping our price point exactly the same as it was before. So although we added these 6 new features, we're going to be charging the same amount for the product going forward. So the first one, RPS programmable. When we first launched the 465, the way you programmed it, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is the TerraTerm interface. It's not the easiest to use. You can't create templates in the TerraTerm interface, and it can be kind of a pain. So now with the newer version of the 465, with version 2.0 firmware and version 6.05 RPS, you can program the 465 through RPS remotely through network, cellular, or a local USB connection. The cloud certificate. So this is a big thing that we've added to our B and G series panels as well. And now the 465 has the cloud in addition to our B and G series panels. So this is great for customers that are looking to install a panel, and they don't want to, it's not on their own private network. They don't want to worry about having to know the configuration of the IP address, and if the IP address changes, they run into issues. So with the cloud certificate, basically 465 reaches out to our Bosch cloud, and then you can pull the 465 into your account, and by knowing the cloud certificate, you can always have access to that 465 via the Bosch cloud. The next item that we added is support for the 444. So again, this product is going to be releasing fairly soon. It's our new 4G LTE Verizon communicator. And in here we have a note. I think everybody is probably well aware that there's no CDMA activations after June 30th of this year. So that's not that CDMA is dying. CDMA is still going to be around. They've said till they're going to fully support their networks through the end of 2019. So it won't be until 2020 before we start, seeing any any issues with support for the network, the CDMA network. But obviously Bosch wants to try to get ahead of that and offer a solution, and we plan on offering that here in the very near future, the Bosch B444. The next item that we added for feature that we added for the 465 is support for modem formats. So this is all our Bosch and detection systems legacy panels that are currently installed, pretty widespread. When we launched the 465, we didn't have compatibility with our own formats. So now we have support for modem 2, modem 2E, and modem 3A squared. So now you can upgrade the older, like I said, Bosch and detection system panels to use cellular and Ethernet without having to fully replace the system. You know, all your panel, your peripherals, all that can all stay in place, and you just add a 465, and now you're upgraded to the newest reporting technologies. Account number substitution is the next feature we added. This was kind of an issue for some of our customers when the 465 launched. They would add a 465 to a host panel, and then the way it worked, it would just pass through whatever account number was programmed in that host panel. So for our customers and dealers that didn't have the ability to reprogram that host panel, this became problematic when they had it reporting to a Bosch receiver that already had something with the same account number. So now going forward, any of your new 465s will have the capability for account number substitution. So when we capture the event or the alarm from the host panel, we can replace the account number with whatever account number you would like to replace it with. The last feature on here is the timer test. So we have a little asterisk next to this one. This feature is not programmable via RPS. This was added kind of the tail end of the project, and we weren't able to get the functionality for that into our RPS programming, but it is still available via the USB TerraTerm interface. And this is the configuration of basically a check-in message. So if you're using the inputs on the 465, you're not getting that check-in message that comes from the host panel. So you're just using basically the outputs from that host panel going to the inputs of the 465. You don't get that daily check-in. And then when you're looking at your automation software, you see basically an offline status for all your 465s that are configured this way. Well, now you can configure the 465 to check in itself. So this was an important feature for several of our customers. So all these features that I have highlighted here, the RPS, cloud certificate, support for 444, etc., you can upgrade. If you have a 465 installed in the field today, you can upgrade your 465 to the newest firmware and get every single one of these features with the exception of the cloud certificate. So the cloud certificate, that's something that's built in our factory, so you wouldn't be able to get that. But every single other feature on this list right here, you would be able to get that by simply just upgrading the firmware on the modules that you have currently purchased. So that kind of wraps it up for me in terms of the new benefits. I'm going to hand it back over to Paul to talk about the rest of the items on the agenda.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Yep. So moving on to peripherals and supporting hardware, there's 3 ways to power the 465. As we state there, the first one is with a wire-in transformer, and you see that in the photo below. This is our 1640-120 wire-in. It's available integrated into the B10R medium red enclosure under the part number B10R-1640-120WI. However, it's important to note that because of the room it takes in the enclosure, it's only offered on the B10R and not on the smaller enclosure, the B11R. In addition to this, the wire-in option, we also offer a plug-in transformer, the D1640, and finally you can power it from the host panel with 24-volt DC if available. Next slide. For those installations where you're going to use the B465 to capture and transmit communications from fire panels, we provide an option for local enunciation so that it complies with the UL 864 standard that Chris mentioned earlier for fire alarm systems. This option is the B46 external annunciator, and it can be added to the B10, the B10R, and the D8103 enclosures. It's also included on the enclosure kit I mentioned on the previous slide with the wire-in transformer, and it provides local annunciation with a sounder and LED lights for system trouble, power, and battery status. Next slide. So I've mentioned the enclosure kit now a number of times, and in addition to that kit, we also offer a range of full kits that include the B465 for both intrusion and fire applications. These include various configurations with or without the cell module, with various power options, and a range of enclosure sizes. You can find a document highlighting these kits exactly like you see here with other supporting documentation on the web page for the B465 under the Documents tab. And Chris, if you can advance to the next slide, I'll review the other documents that are there as well. So in addition to this B465 kit document, which you see there as a second bullet, we also have our standard data sheet as well as a brochure highlighting the features and benefits we've reviewed with you today. We've published a press release and a white paper, which you may have seen in various industry trade magazines. And finally, we're offering a Bosch compatibility matrix, and I'll get a little bit more into that on the next slide. But in addition to this documentation, there's also an extensive list of videos on our YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with that, that's YouTube channel is Intrusion to Go. So I encourage you to subscribe to that so you're kept up to date on new videos that we publish there. And this site again is Intrusion to Go. So it's the word intrusion, the number 2, and then the word to go. Or I'm sorry, then the word go. So intrusion, number 2, go. Next slide. All right, so wrapping up the presentation, I just wanted to show you a new document we've added. And as Chris mentioned, we've added compatibility with our legacy modem formats on some of our older panels. So this document shows you for each of these legacy panels which PSTN format the B465 will recognize and is compatible with. So the 465 auto recognizes the output. However, you need to make sure that the legacy Bosch panel is sending in one of these outputs. And so I think, as everybody's aware, this 465 is not only for Bosch panels, and in fact it was initially designed for other panels outside of Bosch. So to capture that signal and send them to and upgrade them to IP communications to a Bosch receiver. But now that we've added more support for some of our legacy Bosch panels, we felt it important to provide this compatibility matrix so you see exactly which of the PSTN formats the 465 supports for each of the panels.